Hi, my name is Jennifer Hong, and today I will be talking about Lab 1, which studies charged tapes. So, a little bit of background on this lab. Charged ions and electrons can typically be transferred from one object to another through the process of rubbing, pulling apart, or touching. The transfer of charge gives the object either a positive or negative charge, and in this lab, we're going to be using charged tapes for the object. The net charge on tape usually ranges between 1.6 times 10 to the negative 19 to 1 times 10 to the 5 coulombs. The objective of this lab is to create a charged piece of tape using the pull-apart method, to observe how the tape interacts with different charged objects and neutral objects, and to determine the excess charge on a piece of tape. So the fundamental physics principles that we will be discussing today include Newton's third law of action-reaction, where charged objects are attracted to neutral objects, whether the charge of the object is positive or negative. Coulomb's law, where opposite charges are attracted to each other and like charges repel each other. And the law of conservation of charge, where charges can neither be created nor destroyed. So for the procedure, we will be charging tape, seeing how tape interacts with a neutral object, seeing how the charged tape interacts with a charged object, and seeing how two pieces of charged tape interact with each other. To begin this experiment, we will first start by charging tape. This is done by cutting a 20 centimeter piece of tape and then folding about 2 centimeters under at one end to create a handle. This piece of tape will then be adhered to a smooth surface to create our base tape. After that, we will start to create our U-tape, which will be the charged piece of tape. So you'll start that by cutting a second 20 centimeter piece of tape and then creating another handle, and then writing U on that handle to indicate that it'll be your charged piece of tape, and then adhering that U-tape over the base tape as shown in figure 2. Charging the tape is done by pulling the U-tape quickly off the base tape in order to transfer the charge. Check if the tape is charged by holding up the tape and seeing if it is attracted to your hand. After learning how to charge a piece of tape, I then did tape interactions. The first tape interaction that I did was U-tape interaction with a neutral object. This is done by first charging a piece of tape and then moving the U-tape close to the neutral object to observe the interaction. Then I recorded the observation. The neutral objects that I used in this experiment were books and a wooden chair. The next interaction that I observed was tape interaction with a charged object. In this case, I used a charged pen. So you first want to charge a pen by rubbing the pen against hair, and then charging a piece of U-tape and holding the two objects close together and observing their interaction. Then record your observation. The last interaction that I observed was U-tape interaction with each other. So I set up an apparatus by creating two pieces of charged tape and then placing one charged tape between two stackable objects like tape B in figure 1. Then I moved a second piece of U-tape close to tape B and observed the interaction. I then recorded the distance at which the U-tape began to float up. So I recorded some expectations before my experiments and recorded my observations during the experiment. For my expectations, I expected the U-tape to not interact with a neutral object. I expected the U-tape to be attracted to the charged pen if it was positively charged and repel away from the charged pen if it was negatively charged. I then expected the U-tapes to repel each other because they will have the same charge. And for my recorded observations, I recorded that the U-tape was attracted to the neutral object, that the U-tape repelled away from the negatively charged pen, and that the U-tape began to float when the other U-tape came near it. The two pieces of U-tape began to repel each other at a distance of about 0.0381 meters. After recording my observations, I then did some calculations. The first calculation I did was finding the charge of the tape. This was done by finding the force of gravity, which is mass times gravity, and then setting it equal to the electric force and solving for the charge. This gave me a charge of negative 1.78 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs. After finding the charge of the tape, I calculated the number of electrons by taking the charge of the tape and dividing it by the charge of an electron to get 1.112 times 10 to the positive 11 electrons. After that, I calculated the number of atoms on the tape by taking the area of the tape and dividing it by the area of an atom and getting 4 times 10 to the positive 17 atoms. I then found the ratio of electrons to atoms to be 2.78 times 10 to the negative 7. This is a list of my results of the charge of the tape, the number of electrons, the number of atoms on the tape, and the ratio of number of electrons to number of atoms. After I did my calculations, I created a computer model to model what the interaction would look like. The yellow and the blue spheres are both electrons, point electrons on the pieces of tape. The green arrow is the electric force and the red arrow is the gravitational force. The orange arrow pointing into the blue sphere is the electrical field for that sphere. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.